Hello, my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. Today's video topic is a little bit spicy. Okay, come on. It's maybe very mild spice, like the mild sauce from Taco Bell type of spice. I'm not really a spicy or controversial person most of the time, or at least I try really hard not to be. I don't like causing dissension. I want inner peace, you guys. But, you know, I still have opinions that I think are fun to share. I love it when people make videos like this, and basically it's just like plants that everyone else seems to like, but that I just don't like. I think the title of the video is gonna be like popular plants that I don't really like. Because I don't wanna say like I hate these plants. Hate's a strong word, okay? But I don't know. I'm just not as fond of them, and that's okay. Obviously, all the disclaimers here, I'm not meaning to insult your favorite plant. If you like any of the plants that I talk about, that's perfectly fine and okay. We all are entitled to our preferences in plants, and I think that it's really cool to have a diversity in preferences and styles and that sort of thing. And none of these plants that I'm going to talk about are objectively bad plants. Like, they all have their merits to them. I just have little irks or associations with each of these plants that I'm just like, I don't know if I vibe with them. They're not the vibe for me, you know? So without further ado, here are some popular plants that I don't really like. The first one I'm going to talk about is probably like the most hot and trendy at the moment, and that's the Anthurium deltaforce. Oh my gosh, everyone that likes Anthurium, and even people that like don't like Anthurium usually, have been talking about this Anthurium deltaforce. It's like all over social media right now. And I think it's technically an older hybrid, but it's still extremely expensive. But I don't know, for some reason everyone's talking about it this year. And okay, let me make sure I have room right here to display some of the plants I'm talking about. I love Anthurium. I think that like it's cool, and I think the appeal to it is that it's so like exotic, I guess. It's very different and unique compared to other Anthurium. I mean, I've never seen another Anthurium that's shaped like this. It's very triangular and severe. I believe it's a hybrid between the Anthurium clarinervium and the Anthurium hedoriatum or something along those lines. But it's not like if you cross those two plants you automatically get a deltaforce, to my understanding. I believe it's a very specific seedling that was selected and cultivated for its traits. I was kind of doing a little bit of reading on it for this video, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was like back in the 90s it was originally cultivated. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I can appreciate it, but like everyone seems to be foaming at the mouth for this plant, and it's almost like turned me off from it a little bit, because I'm like, okay, everyone else seems to like love it, and obviously if you like it, that's awesome. There's a reason that people like it. There's a reason that it's popular. I think I'm feeling some resistance to getting swept up in the hype for some of these like newer plants that are coming on the scene, so to speak. Or, I mean, obviously, like I said, this one technically isn't even new per se, but I just think that everyone's talking about it. Maybe it's also the name for me, deltaforce. It sounds almost like sci-fi-esque, or it sounds very severe and intense. And I don't know, that's a really weird nitpick to have with a plant, but even looking at it and then accompanying the name with it, just the association that I have with the plant, it just doesn't feel like me. If someone were to give me a deltaforce, I wouldn't say no, because, you know, it's an Anthurium. I think it would be cool because it's different from anything else that I have in my collection, but I don't think that I would ever seek one out, and I don't personally find it all that appealing. For some reason, I think I just prefer like the classic Anthurium shapes, a little bit more heart-shaped or with no sinus. Strappy Anthuriums too, I also really like. I don't know, I think I just can't get over the shape. Sorry, my laptop is right here and I'm looking at pictures of it. I don't know, I think I just can't get over the shape of the leaf. It just, and that's like the whole appeal of it, is the shape and the livination. It's really unique. Again, I can appreciate it for what it is, but I don't think that I would ever personally want it. Maybe I would change my mind if I saw it in real life. Like, I want to be humble enough to be like, I don't know, maybe I would like it, and my mind can change. I'm open to that, but as of right this moment, I don't find it that appealing. It's also extremely expensive, so I'm like, I don't think that I will ever get it. The next plant on my list is actually the alocasia jacklyn, which I think a lot of people really love this plant, guys. So I feel bad being like, I don't like it. So really quickly, I'm editing this video and I've been doing a little bit more research as I've been editing, and I've just realized that there's apparently a lot of like tea or controversy surrounding this plant that I was completely ignorant to. Somehow it like completely went over my head. I just like didn't realize it. So I don't really address that in this video at all. However, one thing of note is that I think it technically should be called alocasia tandurusa. I'm referring to it as an alocasia jacklyn in this video. I think a lot of people still call it the alocasia jacklyn, so I don't know. I was just kind of ignorant to all of that stuff. So if you're interested in what the tea is, I'm sure if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. I'm not an expert on the subject. And I've been becoming a little bit more of an alocasia girly recently. I've been enjoying them, and I don't know, I feel like this plant really got a lot of hype last year, and I think that people still enjoy it, but last year in particular it got really popular on social media, at least around my circles, and it was like on everyone's wish lists. And I don't think it was even necessarily considered a super rare plant. I don't know how expensive it was. Let me check. Yeah, I don't feel like it's particularly expensive. It's just everyone all of a sudden was like, oh yeah, this is a cool plant that exists. I think the initial reason that I didn't like it was that it just looked sickly to me for some reason. Maybe it was the coloring or the venation. It just felt unnatural to me. So that was my first impression of the plant. The leaf shape, I think, is what people find most appealing about it, which again, I can appreciate that it's really unique and different. And I do see the appeal with some of the more mature alocasia jacklyns that look like deer or like deer antlers, because like I love a deer motif myself. I mean, if I were to get a tattoo, I think one of the first tattoos I might get is like a pair of deer antlers in honor of my dad. But at the same time, like I like the leaf itself when it's more mature, like, and gets really intense, and I'll try to find some pictures to explain what I'm talking about. But then at that point, the petioles are so long. I don't find extremely long petioles that nice to look at. I mean, I guess it depends on how you display the plant and everything. Like there's a way that you can pull it off, but I just personally don't usually prefer that in a plant. And so there's just like enough going against it for me in my mind that I never really understood the hype for it. I never really gravitated towards the alocasia jacklyn. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. There were a few times when I was like, oh, maybe I'll change my mind with this plant because like the whole deer thing, like I really enjoy that. And some people's specific alocasia jacklyns I do appreciate, but most of them, when I see them, I just think they look a little bit sickly to me. And I don't know. I just don't know if I really like it that much. And I don't know, it was one of those weird Twilight Zone moments where like everyone's talking about it around me and I'm just sitting there like, I don't really like it. I could see a world in which I could be persuaded, but at that point I would want to be careful and self-aware enough to know, okay, am I being influenced to like this plant or do I actually like it? That is a chronic problem in my life, and I think other people feel the same way. The next plant I want to talk about is actually a little bit of a throwback plant. I don't know if it would be completely considered popular still, but it certainly had its moment, and that is the pilea peperomioides. Yeah, when I first started getting into plants and like really collecting them, this plant was really all the rage. Everyone was talking about it, everyone wanted it, and I don't think I ever saw the appeal personally. If I were to go for a plant that like had those saucer shaped leaves, I would go for the watermelon peperomia. But even so, I don't know if you've ever seen like really mature specimens of the pilea peperomioides. I just don't like what they end up looking like in the long run. I feel like they tend to get like a little bit on the gangly side. They tend to start looking kind of misshapen and weird, and I think all of the circles just kind of give me the ick because it makes me feel like they're all suction cups or like tentacles. I don't know, I have weird associations in my mind with the pilea, okay? So many people love it and it's a beloved plant because like for a lot of people, I think it's a lot of people's first plants or one of the first plants that they got. And honestly, when people are getting into house plants or like they have a few in their home and they talk to me about them. Oftentimes they don't know what the name of their plants are. They're like, oh, I have like 5 plants and let me describe them to you and you can like let me know what they actually are. And I feel like 80% of the time those people are like, I have this plant that has like these round green leaves and like they all stick out, and I'm like, is it the pilea peperomioides or a Chinese money plant? And I pull up a picture and I'm like, that's it. And I don't know why I went on that tangent. I think, oh yeah, my point was, I think it's beloved to a lot of people because it's like the first plant in a lot of people's collections. And also it like pops really easily, so you can create more plants, and I understand that that's really, really exciting. That's one of the incredible parts to plant collecting, and one of the parts that people really latch onto when they start collecting plants is that realization that you can propagate plants and share them. And since the pilea is really easy in that regard, kind of like the spider plant, yeah, a lot of people just love it and attach to it and bond with it and have that nostalgia factor. And I have never actually owned a pilea peperomioides, so I don't have that attachment. I just see it at a distance and I'm like, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm sorry. And I think that there are some specimens that can look really beautiful, but most of the time when I see them, I just, either the shape of them is weird to me, or like certain ones, like leaves are dying off in weird places, or like if they're not perfectly balanced the whole way around, like if you aren't consistent with rotating them, they can get so lopsided. And I don't even know if I like having like the little leaves stick out like the way that they do. I don't know. I just, don't hate me please, but I just don't like it. I don't know what to tell you. The next plant that I don't really like that much was also really trendy in the past year, kind of like the alocasia jacklyn. I think that these two in my mind came together, like they surged at the same time. I don't know if I'm imagining that, but that's just how I remember it. And it's the ficus shivereana, which is basically like another variation or cultivar of the ficus elastica, which is the rubber tree. And it has a different looking variegation pattern than like the ficus elastica taneki and the ficus elastica ruby, but it kind of has all of those colors in there, like the yellow and the green and the kind of like reddish orange colors. It's very speckly or like mottled compared to like the ficus elastica taneki. Like the variegation is more on like the outer portion of the leaf, and the middle of the leaf is more like green. It's not that I strictly like dislike this plant. Like there's nothing to hate about it. Like it's a perfectly fine plant. There's a reason again that people really liked it. I think for me, it flooded the market really quickly and got really oversaturated really quickly. And I think I got overwhelmed and burnt out on this plant before I could even really fully give it a chance. I think everyone just hopped on the bandwagon immediately and was talking about the ficus elastica shivereana, and it was like all the rage. Looking at it now, I mean, I can appreciate why people like it, but at the same time, I just don't think that I prefer that variegation pattern over like my ficus elastica taneki. So I really never felt a need to get it. And I think the yellowish tinge that it has, it's a similar issue with the alocasia jacklyn. A lot of the shivereanas that I've seen have been a little bit more yellow toned, and I think subconsciously that makes me feel like it's sickly. So maybe, I mean, there are some versions or iterations of the shivereana that are more green coated, like there's a little bit more green to them, or like patches of green, and so I think I might prefer that. But honestly, at that point, it's like, again, I have the taneki, I don't need the shivereana. I think I can appreciate it in other people's collections, but I would never seek one out for myself. I don't think that I would ever get one, honestly. It just doesn't appeal to me personally. And if you prefer that variegation pattern, absolutely 100% go for it. Get that plant in your collection, but it's not for me, and that's okay. The last plant that I want to talk about today is the Hoya kerrii. And I think that this one, kind of similar to like the pilea peperomioides, I think that it was at its height a few years ago, but I do think that it's still fairly popular. And again, at least it had a very big surge of popularity back in the day from what I can personally remember. And I don't know, I think the thing that put me off of this plant was actually initially like the little single hearts that get sold around Valentine's Day. I don't have anything like personally against the plant per se, but the way that it's been marketed, it makes me feel like people have been taken advantage of because they get this one little heart that's like probably never going to grow into anything more than that. Someone in my life got one of them. I think it was like my mom or maybe my mother-in-law or someone else, like a friend, and they were excited about it growing, and I had to break the news to them that it might not grow into anything. So okay, just prefacing with all that, I think that that whole phenomenon has sort of colored my view of the plant. The fully grown Hoya kerrii, I mean, again, I have nothing really against them. Honestly, I think the more popular version of it is like the variegated inner or outer. I believe there's 2 different versions. Like that kind of Hoya kerrii is also honestly probably more popular than like the green version of the Hoya kerrii. But yeah, I don't really like any of them because sometimes the leaves are like perfect heart shapes, but sometimes they're more misshapen, and then they just start to look weird to me, like all together. I think that I would always just rather have a Hoya obovata or like a more perfectly round leaf. I've never like been a particular fan of like the heart shape. Like maybe it just feels too kitschy to me or something like that. I don't know. Again, there's nothing objectively wrong with it, but I think I've just never really latched onto that look. I don't know, if I were to think about shapes that I prefer, like I prefer stars to like hearts. I guess there's enough going against it I just don't prefer. And so I don't think I would ever seek it out, so you have to have it in my collection because I just don't like it. And again, that's okay. Hopefully I'm not canceled after this video. I'm mostly joking. I definitely think that I could come up with more plants to talk about, but I didn't want to like overload this video too much. I don't want to step on too many toes, but if you guys actually enjoyed this type of content, if you want to hear my opinions on plants a little bit more, or if you want like a part 2 to this video or anything like that, please feel free to let me know. But yeah, if you like this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. All those things are super helpful for my channel, and I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye!